I'm going to dive into competition calling and some of the things about competition calling and how you can better yourself, and you can learn from what's inside my head how I scouted and how I went about a competition, and what is all wrapped around it. So number one, when you enter a competition, what is it you want to do? Are you just entering it for fun, or do you want to win? Um, if you have a goal of you wanting to win, which I don't enter something unless I want to be competitive. I want to see what I can do compared against everybody else. I'm not just entering a competition to give my money, okay? Um, so basically, your goal is to call in a lot of coyotes. So, what is wrapped around all that? You've got to have land, and you've got to have scouting, and you've got to have landowner permission. You've got to have public land. You've got to have a whole bunch of land at your disposal so that you can call in a lot of coyotes. Now, in calling them in, we're going to go over this, whether you're using hand calls or e-calls or what method of calling you're going to use. But that all boils down to, once you call a coyote in, you've got to kill coyotes. Okay, how do you get to that point? Okay, so I'm just going to call it scouting. And I'm going to start first with just landowner permission, okay? The West, where I hunted, was full of public land, so I hunted a lot of public land. I enjoyed that. There's probably not quite as many coyotes some years on public than a ranch, because the ranch has an endless supply of rabbits, and usually ranches are in good water areas, so you have lowland, and it has a lot of rabbits, and the coyotes can have high numbers of pups because those pups they have a readily available food supply, whether it's dead cattle, whether it's rabbits, mice, whatever. Now, out in the public expanses, a lot of times there's not as much water. Typically, the public land may have a stream running through it, and that's where I would concentrate on calling coyotes, is somewhere close to water. But typically, the bigger expanses don't have that. Ranchers have the water supplies typically, which is, you're going to have to get permission. So you're going to have to learn to talk to ranchers. And there's so many keys that go into just that. So many people, they drive around and we got permission over here. We got permission over here. We got permission over here. Well, what did that rancher tell you about the coyotes? Well, we never asked. Well, what do you mean you didn't ask? You got permission to hunt his land and you don't even ask him questions. There's vital questions you need to ask these ranchers just to see if the numbers are there, because 90% of the coyotes are on 10% of the land. You're still going to have scattered coyotes here, there, and everywhere, but the bulks of your numbers are going to be concentrated. So now wrap your mind around that, okay? If you ask a rancher, hey, you've been hearing coyotes howl in the evening. Oh yeah, we hear them. Well, where do you hear them? Well, we've been hearing them over there. They howl over here all the time, and there's some over here. And when they start doing that, then you've got numbers, okay? But if they say, well, it's been a long time since we've heard one howl, but the last time we heard one howl, we heard one over there. Now, if they say there's usually a bunch over there, I'm considering at least two, because two coyotes can sound like 4 or 6 or 8. So you're going to ask that landowner vital questions. Where have you been seeing coyotes? Have you been seeing them when you're feeding cattle? Yeah, I've been seeing one down there all the time, and I have some across the road in front of me up here. And you ask them those questions. That is your scouting. When you ask a rancher or a local, you ask them if they've been seeing coyotes. And then you say, well, where have you been seeing them? They're doing your scouting for you. So you don't even need to go check those places out, because they're frequenting in them. Out on public expanses, I'm looking for scat. I'm looking for tracks. Some people want to locate, and I disagree with a lot of people on locating, because I have my own philosophy and my own theory on killing coyotes and calling coyotes. And I think I've done it enough that I think it stands enough test of time that I think what I say should be at least considered. And then sightings is important. I like to sometimes see a coyote and then I know they're there, because it's a lot like when you're bird hunting or you're deer hunting. If you see one deer, typically there's more around. So if I see one coyote, I know there's more around. So I don't discount anything when I see a coyote. I like to see them. I'm not shooting at them either. So you do whatever you want, but if you go in there guns a-blazing, start killing stuff that you see or making stands or whatever, I think it's only hurting you on the place that you're going to be hunting. And the last thing here, as far as scouting goes, is call a few stands. Do you or don't you? I've went into new states not knowing anything about the terrain. I haven't seen much sign. I've seen some scat and I saw some tracks, but I wanted to know for sure if the coyotes were responsive of my style of calling. So what I did was I went about 5 miles away, just picked a spot that looked decent, made a stand, never fired a shot, had a coyote come in at 200 yards, came over the hill, stood there. I never even called again. I just let the coyote leave. And that was enough for me to know that, okay, they're going to respond to my sound. They actually came in good, or it came in good, just like what I wanted to see. I knew what to look for. In the terrain, sometimes it's hard to get, okay, what's that coyote going to look like coming in? So it told me what I wanted to know, but I didn't go in there guns a-blazing, blowing out the whole country, shooting coyotes and blah, blah, blah. I just called one stand to see if I could call one in. And I called one in, let him leave, and that's all I needed to know. So my philosophy is, in locating coyotes, I don't even like to locate coyotes, because my whole philosophy stems from, I hunt coyote calling terrain or coyote country like I know they're there. It's no different than whenever I fish for walleye or whatever. Whenever I start fishing for a walleye, I fish where I think he's going to be, and then I keep moving until I catch one. If I catch one, I work that area. Coyote calling is exactly the same way, and I'll go over this in another video. But once you kill one coyote, you call right there by that coyote, because there's probably another coyote close by. So let's go on to part 2, and I'm going to tell you about a locating scenario where I just kicked butt, and it proved to be my best finish ever in the national championship, all because of the locating. Until next time.